tell us your name? Did you live here? Did you die here? Do you want to take a trip? Hi, folks, and welcome back to Strange Journeys, a most unusual, whatever we call this, live stream podcast, whatever you want to call it. We are live again, Strange Journeys, and I'll be joined. I'm your ghost host, Tom, by the way, and I'll be joined hopefully in a moment or two by Lewis Powell the Fourth, and hopefully some other ETs as they're able to get unhindered from whatever they're doing. So hopefully we'll have some more ETs with us. But just remember that we provide these shows first and foremost for you, the watchers, for your entertainment. We are not by any means and do not claim to be scholars or experts in any of the topics we cover. However, today, Lewis, which is why he's trying to work things out to get here as soon as he can, has written extensively about South Carolina hauntings in his blog at southernspiritguide.com. And I was going to show you this real quick. Yeah. southernspiritguide.com. This is his page on the Directory of South Carolina Haunts. So you can see he's got tons of stuff here. So be sure to check that out at Southern Spirit Guide after the show, because there's so much that we're not going to be able to get to in today's show. But we are simply enthusiasts and storytellers who have fun with these topics while doing our best to respect individual beliefs. And please remember that this show is live and nothing is rehearsed or edited out later. What you see is what you get. And the exceptions to that is our revisited shows and our Night Trek shows. They are pre-recorded and then streamed live for you guys to watch. Speaking of, did you catch last night's Night Treks on Jeff? That was a strange story. Hey, there's Lewis. Hey, Lewis, you made it.
Hello. Sorry about that.
That's okay, man. We're just getting through the introductions and everything.
Okay.
I was just talking about last night's Night Treks and on Jeff. Supposedly, according to his own description, he was a talking mongoose who was inhabited or possessed by some earth spirit. And so a really strange story from 1931 on the Isle of Man. And
I'm familiar with that story.
yes, and there was poltergeist activity and voices and all kind of strange stuff. And of course, there is if you can dig into the story. I mean, I just gave the bare bones of it last night on Night Treks, so go back and check that out. But just look up Jeff the Talking Mongoose, and you'll find all kind of stuff on him. And then last 2 weeks ago, we tried to do Strange Highways US 29, and I kept having issues, and which I did upgrade my Wi-Fi and modem and all that good stuff, so we shouldn't have the problem. But I
Yay.
found out I found out the next day that my beautiful wife Lynn with the limited Wi-Fi we had and the limited modem I had, was trying to watch the show to support me on 3 different devices. On 3 different devices in the other room while I was trying to live stream on a device here. So that accounts for, I mean, we would have probably been okay, but in her trying to support me and watching on 3 different devices, that kind of screwed up our show last 2 weeks ago. So I was like, sweetheart, I appreciate you supporting me, but please don't do that.
We love you, Lynn.
Yes. I do appreciate the support. So anyway, that there were some strange stories up US 29.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we found UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings, werewolf sightings, well, possible werewolf sighting. And then all the ghost tales that Lewis brought up, and which reminds me, on that show, it seemed like Lynchburg, Virginia was kind of like a hot spot for all of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you had all your sightings there, strange lights in the sky, strange creatures, ghosts, all kind of stuff in Lynchburg. What's up with Lynchburg, Lewis?
I don't know. but it is that's a town I actually haven't covered in my blog, and over the past 2 weeks I've been actually looking at ways to improve my 29 article, and Lynchburg is of course on the list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, like I said, I mean, I thought about this after the show, and I may have tried to mention it, but because of connection issues, I couldn't. It just seems like Lynchburg is a hot spot.
Mm-hmm.
Not a major hot spot like the place in Arizona, Sedona, Arizona, that has all the vortexes or whatever. But there's something about Lynchburg, because we uncovered several things that had been experienced there.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah.
If you can, I mean, Lewis, you were a trooper. I appreciate it. You went above and beyond duty on the last show, because I was in and out. You just never knew when I was going to lose it. But anyway, we do go on. Like I said, I upgraded my modem, upgraded my Wi-Fi or my internet speed and all that kind of good stuff. And so we shouldn't have any issues today. And Lynn's out doing some running around, so nobody's watching in the other room on 3 devices. so I should be good today. And then last week was the second half of the 3rd part of our ghost hunting show on gadgets with Al Luna and Darren Huff. And we went over different ghost hunting tools, some low tech, old school, some high tech. We talked about the apps. So if you want to go back and watch those 2, you get a good overview of just some of the tools and gadgets that are used in ghost huntings. And now next week, our next revisited show will feature Lewis Powell IV as we start Spirits on Stage, where we talked about haunted theaters. And Lewis, that was your 2nd or 3rd time on the show, I think.
Yeah.
And we brought Lewis back because, well, that's what your degree is in, right? Theater.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And you've researched haunted theaters extensively, and there's some great ghost tales on there. So be watching Revisited next week. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, we certainly appreciate it, and we ask for a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, please.
Click that thumbs up and subscribe to the channel.
Yes, please. What he said. And if you could support us monthly, we do appreciate the patrons that we have on Patreon. You guys are helping us keep this going. Yes, every little bit helps, and we certainly appreciate it. Another way you can support the show is you see the link going by down there, strangestuff.live. Just go buy some stuff. Strange Journeys stuff. You'll see it there. You can get your Watchers t-shirt. You can get your Strange Journeys pillow, your Strange Journeys coffee mug. Beware the Stickman bag. There's a couple of different designs on there. I was going through for a while and making up a graphic thing for each show, but then it just got to be too much. So anything, I mean, if it stands out to me, I may go back and do it, but for the most part, you can get your Strange Journeys shirts as well. So today we're going to the strange state of South Carolina. You know, it's kind of serendipitous or synchronicitous or whatever that word is that we're talking about South Carolina today, because what has been in the news this past week? But an earthquake in South Carolina. Yes. And today I turned on my Weather Nation app on my TV, and guess what they were talking about? A tropical storm in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And then we're coming on this afternoon talking about strange South Carolina. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just kind of that synchronicity, serendipitous, whatever you want to call it. It's just kind of strange, folks. That, I mean, this was, and actually we weren't planning on doing South Carolina, if you remember, because we started this series. We were going to focus on the states that our ETs are from. Mm-hmm. And we focused on each home state. Well, we were going to do Florida because Dagny lives in Florida, but she says, well, I'm really from Illinois, so can we do Illinois? So we switched to Illinois. And then we had Tennessee on slate, which we may go back and do it eventually, because that's kind of my second or third home state, because I'm officially from Mississippi, Alabama, and Tennessee.
You're a real Southern boy.
Exactly. I was born and raised in Mississippi. Part of that raising about half of it took place in Tennessee, and then I've been in Alabama most of my adult life, so I call all three home. But we were going to do Tennessee because that's where Tommy Pratt is from, and he has run the Facebook group Haunted Stories of Decatur County for several years, but he just recently had a job opportunity, just a complete life change, where he ended up moving to South Carolina. So we switched from Tennessee to South Carolina. So we weren't really planning on doing this. And as a matter of fact, I even asked Tommy, I said, do you want to stay with Tennessee, or do you want to focus on South Carolina? And he actually said, let's do South Carolina. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So, and it's also serendipitous, I keep overusing that word, that Lewis has actually done. I mean, he's got tons of research on it. I shared before you got on here, I showed him the Southern Spirit Guides directory of South Carolina. I shared the page and showed that they can go there to get tons of information on hauntings in South Carolina. And
well, it does happen. I have a sister who lives in Charleston,
oh,
and so I go to Charleston at least a few times a year,
wow.
and I absolutely love the state.
Well, good. Good. I mean, I drew from your blog for several things in the haunting section.
Mhm.
So feel free to add if I haven't, if I've missed something exciting. I tried to glean through
Okay.
it to find when we get to the haunting part of it. But I do want to say this before I forget, and help me remember to announce it again before we close out today, Lewis.
Okay.
On our next show will be closing out our season, be 13 shows. And it just worked out this way that we do 13 shows a season. It's an odd number, I know, strange. Excuse me. But in 2 weeks, our final show of the season will be Strange, Alabama. And we have returning special guest Will Elric. That's almost a tongue twister to say his name, isn't it? Will has already committed to being with us. He's written the book on legends and lore of Alabama, so he's going to have some strange stories to tell about Alabama. Then his wife, Kelly Kazak, who writes for AL.com and has it's a southernthing.com website. I guess it's .com, but it's called It's a Southern Thing. So if you look that up, you can find Kelly Kazak and all her books. And she might be with us. But also Lee Peacock is going to be with us. He was in the movie The Town That Loves Bigfoot, talking about Evergreen, Alabama. And it was a documentary about the Bigfoot sightings in that area. And Lee has written extensively about Bigfoot sightings in that area, and he will be with us. And I have a fourth special guest I haven't invited yet. It's going to be if I get to and they agree, then we're going to just do that one as a surprise. So that's going to be an awesome show to close out the season, and then who knows where we go next. I've got some ideas, but we're just focusing on getting season 4, if y'all can believe it. Season 4, we're finishing up season 4 of Strange Journeys. It's wild. So anyway, help me remember to announce that again at the end of the show, because I get going on all this stuff and I forget things I'm supposed to say. I always go back and watch and I'm like, crap, I was supposed to say this or that. And then, but anyway, all right. We start like we did with the others, with Strange Laws. And I'm going to be honest with you, this South Carolina's got some of the strangest I've come up against so far. Okay. I'm just going to, this is, I mean, some of them make sense, some of them don't make sense. But in Hilton Head, it is illegal to leave garbage inside your car. That's a good idea. Okay. We just bought a little car for my nephew for Lynn, because in the space of 6 months, she's been in 2 wrecks. And so we had to replace a vehicle again. And we just, my nephew just happened to have a nice little car for sale, little SUV, mini SUV. And we got it. The next day, we're noticing ants all over the inside of the car.
Ooh,
and I'm like, I was looking around, and down inside the passenger door was like breadcrumbs or cookie crumbs or something. I'm like, oh, there you go. So she took it and got it completely cleaned and detailed. Because that's what happens if you leave garbage inside your car, folks. So they were probably having an ant problem. So they're just like, no, we're not going to have that in Hilton Head. Okay, now this next one is kind of mind-boggling and mind-blowing, but it's a law on the books. The legal drinking age at Furman University is 60.
Well, I think that makes sense in a university town.
I guess so. It's just kind of odd. I would like to know the background of that one.
And Furman is in Spartanburg, and I think Furman is right there. It's just down the street from Wofford College, and I want to say Liberty. No, not Liberty University. Oral Roberts University, which is very old school Southern Baptist, very very strict. They're also in the same town, I think. Don't quote me on that.
I won't. You're not going to get any argument from me. So, but it's just kind of odd, especially a university saying the legal drinking age is 60. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I still couldn't drink there legally.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And the next one I understand, but it's kind of odd that it's actual law on the books, but you must have a special permit in order to fire a missile anywhere in the state. So I understand that, but the fact that they had to put it out there is like, oh, okay.
Well, that brings up a strange story.
Yeah.
Have you heard about the nuclear bomb that they accidentally dropped off the coast of South Carolina?
Oh, yes, but I don't remember any details.
I can't think of the details off the top of my head either, but maybe back in the 1950s there was an incident where a military plane, it ends up accidentally letting this bomb go, and of course it didn't go off. I don't think they had.
We would have known.
Yeah. They hadn't set it up to go off. So, right. This nuclear bomb is still lodged in the silt, I guess, off of the coast of South Carolina somewhere.
Wow. Yeah, I do remember hearing about that. All right. And fortune tellers must have a license. So remember that. If you're going to tell fortunes in South Carolina, you need to be licensed. And what's funny is how would you apply for that? You know, it's not like going to get your driver's license and showing, you know, your birth certificate and saying I'm old enough to drive. You know, what do you show? What do you tell their fortune to prove? You know, how do you prove to the licensing commission that you're a fortune teller? I don't know.
Someday you're going to die.
Yeah.
Wow. I foresee it.
Yes.
Give me my license.
That's right. There you go. Yeah. All right. Okay, now this one is a head scratcher. Even though South Carolina now allows tattoos, it is still illegal to get a tattoo anywhere in the state. So if you come in South Carolina and you have a tattoo, you're okay. But if you're in South Carolina and you want to get a tattoo, you have to leave the state, I guess. So, and that's probably one of those that's not, what do they call it?
Not enforced.
Right. It's not enforced. So I'm sure, being that it's 2022, that there's tattoo shops just about on every corner. All right. Horses cannot be kept in a bathtub.
Okay.
Makes sense. You know, somebody somewhere obviously tried that for it to actually be on the books. Okay, we've run into this one before. And when approaching a blind road or a four-way intersection, non-horse vehicles must stop 100 feet from the intersection and shoot a firearm into the air to warn horse traffic. But I was wondering if that might not scare the horse, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, 100 feet away, I don't know, but that crack in the air might spook the horse. So I think we came across this same one in Kansas, wasn't it? Where they had to stop and shoot into the air. And Tim was saying he thought that was because this outlaw lived close by and they wanted to get warning if the cops were coming.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
All right. Here's another head scratcher. Nothing can be sold on Sundays except light bulbs. I, I
Okay.
I don't know. The light bulb vendors have a heyday on Sundays, I guess. Set up a stand and sell light bulbs because that's the only thing you can sell. So, and then you must be 18 to play pinball. Now,
Okay.
that, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that they equate it to juvenile delinquency somehow. You know, these kids hanging out playing pinball. The next thing you know, they're, and all right, this is one of my favorites that we've come across so far. In South Carolina, fire departments may blow up your house. It is an option.
I guess maybe to create a fire break, perhaps.
I guess, but I thought I think that's the favorite law I've come across as we're doing this. That in South Carolina, the fire department can blow up your house.
Wow.
They're legally protected. All right. Now in Charleston, eating ripe and juicy watermelons in the Magnolia Street Cemetery is forbidden.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I can think of is people spitting the seeds and the seeds sprouting in the cemetery. That's the only thing I can think of. Okay, here's another head scratcher. It is illegal and a capital crime. Now, does everybody remember what a capital crime is? One that you can be put to death for. Okay. It is illegal and a capital crime for killing someone while trying to commit suicide. And I think about that. You're trying to commit suicide and you kill somebody else. Well, you can be, excuse me, sent to hang or to the electric chair. And it's like, okay, that's where I wanted to be anyway. I guess, I don't know. But illegal and a capital crime for killing someone while trying to commit suicide. I just don't get the logic of that. Now, the next one is a pretty recent one, but consider the irony here. You cannot text while driving, which that's most states nowadays, but streaming media is okay. That you can't sit there and text, but you can have a DVD or YouTube playing or something, and they're not going to do anything to you. Like I said, the irony of that is amazing. But that's your strange laws in South Carolina. And granted, I didn't do them all, but just like in every state, we've got strange laws. All right, we're going to go on to strange attractions. Now, when I was doing research on this, I came across a ton in South Carolina. So I just picked a few so that we don't spend all the next week going over strange attractions in South Carolina. But in Myrtle Beach, Mr. Crab is the icon and showstopper of the Giant Crab Seafood Restaurant. We can all say that it sure does set this seafood restaurant apart from any other location in the city.
Wow.
Mr. Crab. And if you remember on our Strange States, Mississippi show, we talked about the giant shark head down on Biloxi Beach. Well, they've got a shark, one in Myrtle Beach, which is, I didn't go back and go over that one. Do you have your notes there with you?
For South Carolina?
For the show?
Yes.
Okay. I was going to see if you wanted to read any of these.
Oh, sure.
Okay.
We'll move on to Eddie. Eddie is touted as the biggest kid in the world and resides at Columbia Adventure Children's Museum. And he is a pretty normal, just very large child.
Yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Huge. Yeah.
Wow. And then in Colombia as well is the largest fire hydrant. This is a giant 39 foot tall hydrant, and it is called Busted Plug Plaza. And it is complete with shooting water, which is recirculated, so the sculpture is considered technically a fountain. The gigantic sculpture was created by local artist Blue Sky in 2001. The fire hydrant towers over visitors, providing fantastic photo opportunities. There is a no dogs allowed sign included as part of the sculpture, adding another touch of whimsy to this incredible piece of art.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that huge? And in what was it, Ohio and in Mississippi, we talked about the rocking chair. Well, South Carolina has the big Adirondack chair. The simple but elegantly understated Adirondack chair is immortalized at the Denver Downs Farms. Constructed from wood and built to the measurements of approximately a couple dozen feet high and a dozen feet wide, this porch lounger is big enough to fit an entire family for a memorable photo op. It's part of the fun of the farm, which offers a corn maze and hay rides for the autumn harvest festivities. Now, this next one, Lynn and I were watching a video on YouTube about oddities in South Carolina, and this one to me is just amazing. One, because I've never seen a building constructed like this. It's the old Sheldon Church ruins, constructed around the 1700s. What now stands as the old Sheldon Church ruins was once part of Prince William's Parish Church. Soon after the church was built, it was damaged by the British, who were fighting the Revolutionary War at the time. But as fate would have it, the story of misery didn't end there. The destroyed remnant stayed deserted until 1826, when it was ultimately rebuilt. However, yet again, the church glory was short-lived. General Sherman and his troops, during their march through South Carolina, thought it best for the old Sheldon Church to go back to its previous state of abandonment and destruction, and hence they torched it. After running out on its second chance, the church ruins were left as it is, and today they are covered in beautiful oaks and ancient graves. And the reason I say I've never seen anything constructed like this is those columns. Built with red brick. I mean, it's probably been around. I don't know, but I've never seen it. Usually columns are just one solid piece.
Well, it's actually not uncommon that they would build the columns out of red brick and then coat them over with plaster.
I see.
So they look more solid.
I see what you're saying. And after all the subsequent burnings, it may have just all the plaster may have fallen off.
And I have visited Old Sheldon Church, and it's absolutely lovely. And it's also it is also supposedly haunted.
Oh, okay. Cool. Good to know. All right. The UFO Welcome Center. Can you read that one?
Jody Pendarvis has created a homemade welcome center for aliens. Constructed out of metal, scrap wood, and other junk materials, the two silver UFO welcome centers sit behind a metal fence and are equipped with amenities such as air conditioning, television, restrooms, and shower facilities. The smaller room atop the smaller room that sits atop the lower, larger saucer is without any connecting bolts.
So I guess it can fly off if it has to.
Or maybe the UFO will attach itself to it and fly off with with one of the welcome centers.
Right.
While our ET friends haven't visited the home yet, Pendarvis happily welcomes human visitors inside his masterpiece. Chargeable to humans, free for aliens.
So if you want to visit, you're going to have to pay them a little bit, but the aliens get in free.
Yes.
Now, this next one, I could not skip this one. One, because it holds a special place in my heart because my dad had shown an extreme interest in this just before his passing and had 2 or 3 books on it. But the H.L. Hunley was the very first submarine ever used successfully in wartime. It destroyed an enemy ship, the USS Housatonic, in 1863. But when it did, it was lost at sea, and it wasn't until 1995 that they found the Hunley and identified it and raised it, and it's here in North Charleston being painstakingly restored. If this interests you, you can go to thehunley.org, and they keep updates. I get updates from them regularly. They'll restore an item, and it's just, this is one of my bucket list things, is to visit the Hunley.
And there also there have been a few ghost tales told about the Hunley, the remains of the Hunley. People have had some experiences around those remains because, of course, when they brought it up, it was filled with the remains of the men who had been inside when it unfortunately sank.
Right.
There's also another interesting connection in that the Hunley was actually built in Mobile.
You read my mind. I didn't put it in the notes, but you are correct, sir. And H.L. Hunley, of whom it was named after, actually, the Hunley sank twice before being deployed against the enemy ship, the Housatonic. But in sea trials here in the Mobile Bay, they may have gone out into the Gulf. I don't remember the details, but and H.L. Hunley himself did drown in one of those sinkings.
Oh, wow.
So, and it was built from an old boiler tank. And the building still stands here in Mobile, Alabama, where it was built, right up down on Royal Street. So we even would mention that when we talk about the Hunley in our tours, because, I mean, historically it holds a significant place as being the first submarine to be used successfully, if you call the sinking of a ship successful, in wartime. So, and it's thought that the way the Hunley would attack, it didn't have, I mean, this was just a bare bones. If you go to one of the couple of the museums in Mobile, you can see a replica of what it was like inside. I mean, the thing wasn't but 4 feet. I mean, the submariners that had to be on it had to be real small guys, you know, and then they sat in there, and the way they propelled it was bicycle pedals. They were on they each sat there and pedaled, you know, and it spun the propeller. But the way it attacked was they had a harpoon stretched out on the front of it with a torpedo on the end of it and tied to a rope. And they would, well, what they did was they came upon the Housatonic and they rammed it with that harpoon and the torpedo, and it would detach, and then they would back away, and it was attached to a rope. And when they got to a certain point, the rope would basically pull the pin from the torpedo and it would explode. And the thought is that they didn't get far enough away. That when they did spear the Housatonic and they backed away, it exploded before they got away far enough. And the shock waves sent them to the bottom. So that's just a favorite story of mine. Excuse me. And mainly because my dad was just so intrigued by this. I remember going to see him before he passed away, and he had 2 or 3 books on the Hunley stacked up on his coffee table that he was reading. All right. Now we're going to go into some strange sightings. You want to tell us about the first one?
Okay, the Lizard Man.
I don't have pictures for a lot of these, but I do for the Lizard Man.
Okay. Sometime in either June or July 1988, depending on the source, Christopher Davis, then 17, reported encountering a creature that quickly became known as the Lizard Man of Scape Ore Swamp. A newspaper article said Davis was attacked by a 7-foot lizard type creature while he was changing a flat tire. The article quoted Davis saying, he said its searing eyes, uh, 3 clawed fingers, and snake like scales made him initially believe he was under siege by the devil himself.
Mm.
The same article said 2 men told Lee County deputies they had been chased by a similar creature while they were getting water out of a spring 2 weeks before. The article said, the mystery has fed on rumors which have multiplied since Tom and Mary Way's car was mauled last Thursday while they slept. Their Ford's torn molding, indented sidewalls, broken hood ornament, along with red hairs and footprints left behind, indicate some animal was responsible.
Wow. And did you see the picture?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So that's what they say it looked like. There have been other sightings.
I think they ended up getting casts of several odd footprints as well.
Right. They did collect a lot of evidence for that one. And the thing about this kid, he wasn't a delinquent. I'll put it that way. He was a good kid. He was actually either getting off work. I think he was getting off work at McDonald's and was coming home and stopped to change the flat tire. And as soon as he got it changed, he'd get in the car and looks up, and there's this thing standing there, and it attacked the car. I mean, it probably attacked the car as he floored it to drive through it.
Yeah.
To get away from it. But I mean, the things that I've heard and seen on it, this kid was a straight up kid. He wasn't a troublemaker. He wasn't what they call imaginative that would make up stuff like this. He was really had his head on straight and a good kid. And there are more sightings. There's even a place, I was going to get a picture of it. I forgot. They got a big sign up there, this Harry and me or something. I don't know. But anyway, they got several places dedicated to the Lizard Man there in South Carolina.
Yes.
And they've got a couple of lake monsters, and I only put 2 here, but they've got like 3 or 4 as I come across. One in Lake Norman. A 35-year-old Mecklenburg County man told Cryptozoology that he spotted the dinosaur-like creature Saturday morning. This was broadcast by reported by WBTV on July 13th, 2017. While traveling in a boat with friends, we were near the lake's main channel when we saw something splashing around in the water. And then
Lake Norman is actually just north of the South Carolina state line in North Carolina. And then Lake Murray, which is in Lexington County, just outside of Columbia. Let's see. The lake is 41 miles long, 14 miles in breadth, and almost 200 feet deep.
Wow.
Since the earliest sightings coincided with the emergence of Scotland's Nessie in 1933, Lake Murray was quickly dubbed Loch Murray, and its bottom-dwelling denizen christened Messie.
Messy.
Author Michael Newton's Encyclopedia of Cryptozoology indicates that there are a few details of the initial sighting. But in 1973, Messie reemerged with a literal vengeance. Buddy and Shirley Downing were out on the smooth glass of Lake Murray's waters when the legend roared to life. The couple and a close friend, Cord Brazil, received the fright of a lifetime when an enormous creature suddenly reared up out of the depths and charged their fishing boat. The creature powered through the waves like a missile, closing the distance between the panicked trio in mere seconds. And it
Wow.
didn't stop there. The creature was alleged to have even tried climbing aboard,
Whoa.
though a blow from Buddy Browning's oar changed its mind.
Yeah.
At that moment, the monster veered off and submerged into the deep. Browning later had this to say about their harrowing ordeal. We noticed something coming out of the water at us. It attacked our boat. It wasn't an illusion. It wasn't an eel or sturgeon. It was unlike anything I ever saw before, and I have been fishing in Lake Murray for over 20 years.
Wow.
We never did figure out what it was. It was not an alligator. No, I know alligators when I see it. It was very aggressive, and it was basically on top of the water where you could see it
Wow.
quite well. I've never seen it since. I did come back that day. Cord and I came back over here to the house and got the shotgun, and they went back after it. But they didn't see it again.
Wow. So we've got lake monsters, but I'm going to tell you, that's not the weirdest cryptid sighting they've had in South Carolina. Now, they have had a Bigfoot, BFRO.net, which you know that I recommend for sightings. The latest Bigfoot sighting in South Carolina was last October. What's that? 8 months ago now. This man reported, said, I was camping with my stepdaughter and one of her friends at the Big Bay access area on the Broad River. Upon arrival at the campsite at 12:30 a.m., as is our custom, my stepdaughter did a 2 to 3 second howl, and I did a heavy growl. I guess they've gone Bigfoot hunting before, so they're trying to communicate. Immediately thereafter, we heard creature chatter from across the parking lot, followed seconds later by a wood knock from the same direction but further away. I found a large stick and answered with 2 wood knocks, but got no response. We departed the campsite in 2 vehicles at 4:30 a.m. Approximately 3/4 of a mile up the road, a large doe ran between the two vehicles, which were approximately 20 feet apart. The deer was in a run-for-your-life dead sprint coming from large residential yards to a thick forest. We did not see or hear anything else. There were 3 witnesses, myself, my stepdaughter, and her friend, and no one else was in the area. Now, the reason I bring this up is because of the follow-up investigation. BFRO investigator Bill Hanna wrote, I spoke with the witness via phone on Monday, November the 1st, 2021. We spoke about the event in general terms and agreed to meet at the site the following day. All 3 witnesses were present. We walked about the areas of interest and spoke about the event in detail. While the witness and I walked the area, the other witnesses made a few howls in the camping area. They heard multiple short howls from across the river, approximately 150 yards away. When we returned to the camping area, he heard another short howl, and I heard a grunt. The investigator, following up with this report, begins to experience the same thing. How cool is that?
Yeah.
Now, he says the witness is ex-military and ex-law enforcement, so his observation skills were keen and descriptions detailed. He has also done a good bit of personal research into the Sasquatch subject, as shown by the way they go camping. They automatically start howling and growling and grunting when they get there because they love Sasquatch, I guess. And the investigator says, I believe the witness is very credible. The area has ample clean water, grassy areas, thick forest, and ample food for deer and other animals. It appears to be a good habitat for squatches. Now, that, like I said, I mean, this isn't a sighting per se, but the fact that the witness confirmed with his stepdaughter and the friend that they heard what could possibly be Bigfoot howling. And then when the investigator comes in there, he experiences the same thing.
Yeah.
With them. So I just thought that was amazing. Now, I didn't put any specific UFO sightings because listen to this. Horry County, that's Horry.
Horry County.
Horry?
Yes, it's Horry.
The H is silent. Okay.
Yes.
Like humble or humble. Wait,
Yes.
Is among the top places for UFO sightings per capita, according to 2020 data. Surfside Beach ranked third on the list with 671.44 sightings per 100,000 people. That amazing. Myrtle Beach was sixth.
Wow.
507.26 sites per 100,000 people. What's going on, South Carolina? Mm-hmm. And North Myrtle Beach was ninth with 380.14 sightings. I mean, most of your sightings per capita, I mean, you got 3 out of the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
You got Horry County, Surfside Beach, Myrtle Beach, and North Myrtle Beach. 4 of the top 10 sightings per capita is in South Carolina.
In one county.
Wow. Yes. Okay. Now that's, like I said, I don't have any specific sightings because they have so freaking many. Mm-hmm. I mean, we would be here weeks. Now, the next one is probably the strangest cryptid that we have covered. And, oh crap, I was going to get a picture of it and I forgot. But tell us about this one near Myrtle Beach.
In the summer of 2004, a couple driving towards Myrtle Beach heard a loud flapping sound described as like someone's laundry had come off the line and was getting blown around, like a big bed sheet getting hit by gusts of wind. Mm-hmm. Except we were in the woods and there were too many trees around for it to be laundry blowing around. And then eventually they said, soon a large pterodactyl-like creature was reported flying after the car. After the encounter was over, a grayish, snotty smear was stained over the driver's side of the window. Witnesses reported the creature to be white color. Wow.
And then in Pickens in 2013, a report surfaced of an encounter 3 years prior of a similar pterosaur-like creature. It had leather-like wings and was almost as big across as the windshield. I did not get a good look because it was dark, but it had almost orange-reddish eyes and swooped up before it smashed into the windshield of the car. The whole time I was pumping the brakes, afraid it was going to smash into the car. I told my parents, but they tried to convince me that it was a bat, but I told them no, it was way too big. Then 1 year later, my dad told me he saw the same thing flying towards the windshield of his car on the same road in the same spot. My brother also saw it in the backyard as he was taking out scraps.
Wow.
And then one more, Lewis.
Between Greenville and Florence, South Carolina, in 1989, a witness by the name of Susan Wooten was traveling on Highway 20 to Florence, and this sighting happened in a wooded and swampy area around 3 p.m. She saw a creature with a wingspan of between 12 and 15 feet, no feathers, leathery wings, and then an appendage behind its head.
Wow.
And it also had a long tail. that was distinguishable from its feet. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I
And that
guess it
was
was trailing out behind his feet or something. I don't know.
right. That was probably Interstate 20 that ends in Florence, South Carolina.
Mm. Now, I mean, it's three specific stories from three different witnesses, but there's probably 4 or 5 sightings in there
Mhm.
of this same thing that looks like a pterosaur or pterodactyl, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah.
because there's controversy over the name of this giant flying dinosaur. They call it a thunderbird, but
Mhm.
I don't think I would,
Right.
because the Native American thunderbird actually has feathers, from what I
Mhm.
understand. And there have been some sightings out west of these thunderbirds within the last
Mhm.
100 years. And I think we may have even talked about it on one show. I don't know. But there have been a couple of reports that people shot and killed these giant birds.
Mhm.
And then, of course, the photograph they take of it gets lost.
Mhm.
But I
Of
mean,
course.
yeah, exactly. Got to keep the mystery alive. Um, I don't think this, to me, qualifies as a thunderbird. I think it is, of course, in the research, they're calling it a thunderbird everywhere I looked. But when you get down into the descriptions, it sounds like that giant dinosaur bird called a pterosaur or pterodactyl. Even people can't agree on the name of that bird anymore.
Mhm.
So, but that's what I said. It's the strangest one because it's not just a cryptid; it's like a living dinosaur, possibly, if you believe this. So, all right, we're going to go on to the strange hauntings. We are over an hour, and some of these are from Lewis's southernspiritguide.org directory on South Carolina. And I started with the USS Yorktown. I did put a couple of things in there, but you tell us in your own words.
Okay. Well, the USS Yorktown is a large World War II era battleship that is docked in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina, which is just across the river from Charleston. And like many of these World War II era battleships that are now ship museums, this ship has quite a bit of paranormal activity. It seems that much of the activity tends to be oral activity. So people are hearing
Hearing.
voices and footsteps,
Right.
but people have seen apparitions. In fact,
Wow.
I believe it was ghost hunters that, in their investigation, actually captured some video of an apparition on the ship. And this
Wow.
is a ship that's not only used um, as a museum ship. I do know they have concerts and
Wow.
events there on the ship as well. I mean, it's a large aircraft carrier,
Yeah.
so
Oh, wow.
there's lots of space where they can
A
hold these events. And
lot of room.
oh yes, I have to wonder if the spirits are really enjoying these concerts. Um, but there was a fabulous story about another ship that they used to have at the same museum. It's Patriots Point Museum, and there was a ship there for a little while called the USS Comanche, and this was another World War II ship. And at some point during the war, the ship had been on a journey and had ended up ramming a British troop ship.
Wow.
And the soldiers aboard the troop ship were all wearing these life jackets that had lights on them, so that if they were in
Right.
the water after dark, they could
Yeah.
be spotted.
Right.
And unfortunately, because the Comanche was passing through an area with a good deal of U-boat activity, they had to continue forward. They couldn't stop to pick up the survivors. But there's a story some years ago that, and this is after the Comanche had been removed from the museum and scrapped, but there was a Boy Scout troop spending the night on the Yorktown. And during the course of the evening, some of the scouts walked over and were looking over the side of the ship, and they started seeing these little lights begin to
Oh,
bob in the
wow.
water below the ship. And as they were watching all of this, I think they ended up telling someone who was associated with the museum, but they knew that these were the spirits
Oh, my.
from all of those soldiers who had been killed when the Comanche rammed their ship.
Wow.
Um, I thought that was it's always a phenomenal story.
Hmm.
But that they have several other ships there, and I think all of them have ghost stories, not just the Yorktown.
Wow. Yeah, we've got similar. We got the USS Alabama here.
Yes,
And
yes, and it also has activity.
well, yeah, but not officially. You can
Yes.
ask, and they're like, "Nope, nothing like that happens around
Mhm.
here." And
Right.
there's a little link that I used to give to folks where you could find a. It's I think it was a 360-degree panoramic type picture where you could go on and
Mhm.
you could manipulate the picture and go left, right. It wasn't
Yeah.
a camera. I found this back when I was doing my tours, but it was just a picture that was a 360-degree capture. And in one of them, you saw, I mean, this was an official USS Alabama site, but one of them you
Mhm.
saw a man standing there, but below his legs, it's like faded out to his feet. You couldn't see his
Oh.
feet, but he had on like a brown bomber jacket, and the brown flyer's cap looked like a pilot from back in World War II. So,
Oh yeah.
and there's all kind of reports about being on there, but we'll save
Mhm.
those for our Alabama show. But well, in any type of war type memorial, you have that potential
Oh yeah.
of hauntings. Now, the next one is probably the most popular haunting in South Carolina. He's called the Gray Man, and I heard about him several years ago and did a little digging into it um, because I want to say they have something similar down here or in Florida somewhere. But anyway, the Gray Man, if you spot the Gray Man on Pawleys Island, go home. Why? Because the story of the Gray Man starts in the 1820s. The legend goes that he's a cloaked figure who wanders the beaches ahead of major storms. One woman claims she saw the ghost in 1954, right before Hurricane Hazel. Another rumored sighting was before Hurricane Hugo in 1989, and then 2018's Hurricane Florence. Like most ghosts, the Gray Man story is one of young love lost. The man is rumored to have been traveling from Charleston to propose when his horse got stuck in the mud. He was thrown off, trapped, and dragged under. Heartbroken, the woman would walk along the beach. One day, she saw her late beau, dressed in all black, who warned her that a serious storm was coming, and then vanished. As the story goes, a hurricane made landfall, and her home was the only one still standing. He's purported to be a friendly ghost. It sounds like he's here to do good. And if you're lucky enough to spot him, your home might be untouched in the next storm.
Mhm. And the couple who saw him in 1989 before Hurricane Hugo, if I remember correctly, they came home and their neighborhood was mostly devastated
Wow.
except for their home. And they had even left, there were some towels that had been left out to dry on the railing, and the towels were still in place.
Oh my goodness. The Gray
So
Man is a nice a nice
yes.
entity. He will help you out. All right, tell us about the next one. This one's pretty gruesome.
The Boo Hag. This is from Gullah legend, and it is a creature that rides the night looking for someone they think are a good candidate to steal energy from. This isn't a vampire. This is a creature that reportedly gains energy from a human's breath by riding their victims. It is said that they have no skin, which makes them red in appearance. In order for them to be less noticeable, they will steal a victim's skin and use it for as long as possible. When they find someone that they wish to use, they will remove the skin. They then get on top of the victim's chest, hold its face close to the person, and inhale the person's energy from their breath. It is said that this will induce deep sleep in humans, and they may be and if they are awake, they may get tired very quickly. If, however, they fight the Boo Hag will take their skin to use. If you ever wonder how to keep one out of your bed, put a broom beside the bed before you lie down for the night. The Boo Hag will become so obsessed with counting the straws in the broom that they will not have time to take your energy before the sun comes up. And that actually does tie into a lot of other legends about how to keep a witch away. And supposedly, one of the things is either leaving a broom so that they will have to count all of the straws, or there was something about putting seeds around a fireplace or a door, and they will have to stop and count all of the individual seeds.
Wow. Whatever works.
Yes.
If that keeps the Boo Hag away, please. I mean, the thing about taking someone's skin, I mean, that's just, I mean, a lot of these legends you can see their tie-in to normal everyday life, but that one is just out there.
Yes.
I mean, I can understand the stealing of one's breath, the life's breath and that kind of thing. But stealing their skin. Okay. Tell us about Hangman's Tree.
Okay, this is I'm trying to remember where this is. Just a moment, let me look it up. This is a
northeast on Saints Delight from the intersection with Walker Road. Oh, it doesn't say which town. I didn't get that.
And I think this is near it's near Georgetown.
Community of Lambertown.
Yes, which is I think in Georgetown County, which is there just north of Charleston. And this is a tree that looms over the 2-lane road, or outside of Andrews, South Carolina. There it is.
Okay.
This ancient cypress's story is told in its gnarled trunk and limbs. On the outskirts of the community of Lambertown, this tree, as legend holds, has been the scene of many hangings since the American Revolution. After the Civil War, several people were lynched from this same tree. Sources indicate that some locals are reticent to pass the tree late at night. And it can be found on Saints Delight Road, near the intersection with Walker Road. So this was a tree that I came across a description of. I actually was able to find it on Google Maps. I just ended up using Google Maps to see the entire length of the road, and eventually found this tree next to the side of the road.
On Street View.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool. I mean, but has there, because of the hangings, they have paranormal activity around the tree?
Supposedly.
I pulled this out because of Tim's episode of Night Treks where he talked about the hangman.
Okay.
Where the guy took the fellas to the tree and said that the sheriff hung 82 people, and the guy said, "Oh, I thought you said he or 84 people." And he said, "Oh, I thought you said he killed 42." And he said, "Yeah, 42 while he was alive."
Mm.
I just love that line. and then one of them gets strung up while they're there, and he gets pulled up into the tree, and his body disappears. The old man disappears, and the other three guys are left running off screaming into the night. Okay, 3 more stories, and then I want you to end with a current, something you just found.
Okay.
But the Third Eye Man. Now, this one is kind of creepy. He was first seen in 1949 by 2 USC students. A man dressed all in silver was seen opening a manhole and disappearing into the underground. One of the students, who was a newspaper reporter, wrote about this experience. 6 months later, a police officer was making his rounds around the campus when he came upon some mutilated chickens. He went to his car to report the incident, and on his return, he reportedly saw a strange figure dressed all in silver. The policeman reported that when the man turned, he saw an odd-colored face, and I was checking back to see if the guys, the first sighting had reported his face, because that's one of the particulars about this guy is the color of his face. He had an odd-colored face, and in the middle of his forehead was a third eye, literally. Now, in a lot of mystic teachings, you hear about the third eye, but they're talking about a spiritual thing. But this policeman saw an actual third eye, like the guy from Twilight Zone. Remember him when he lifted up his hat?
Mm-hmm.
He had a third eye. He was from Venus, I think, if I remember correctly. The policeman ran from the scene to request backup, but when the backup arrived, there was no third eye man to be seen. However, it didn't stop the policeman from telling that story for the rest of his life. The next time the third eye man was seen was in the late 60s. There are catacombs and tunnels beneath the university, and a few fraternity guys thought it would be a great place to take their pledges. Upon rounding the first corner, they report that they saw a crippled old man dressed all in silver. He swung at them with a pipe and knocked one of them down. The young man suffered minor scrapes and bruises, but nothing life-threatening. A manhunt was started that night, but nothing and no one was found. The entrance to the tunnels have since been sealed, and so far there have not been other reported sightings of this third eye man. Ah, that's crazy. And I mean, I guess in some of the other stories, as I was researching, his face had an odd color to it as well. And tell us about the Hound of Goshen.
All right. On a desolate stretch of road known as Buncombe between Newberry and Union County, South Carolina, there dwells a terrifying beast known to many as the Hound of Goshen. The stories go back as far as the 1850s, when a young enslaved boy saw the dog for the first time while going to get a doctor. It is said to be an overly large dog and white in color. Some say that if you are to happen upon this dog, that death is sure to follow.
Ooh.
Some say that the dog has red eyes. The last time the dog was seen in 1998, but there's no information on this encounter. As far as anyone knows, this dog has not bitten or attacked anyone to date.
Well, it's usually a black dog.
Yes.
You know, in these legends and myths, it's a black dog. But in this one, it's a white dog.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of odd. Strange.
Yes.
That's why we take strange journeys for these strange things. All right, I'm going to tell about the ghost treasure of Folly Island, and then Lewis is going to tell us about a current sighting that he just found out about this last week.
Yes.
The story goes that when the Civil War broke out, a young soldier was told to gather all the people and bring them in mainland off of Folly Island. When he got to a particular rundown shack, he found an elderly black woman and a child living there. She didn't want any part of leaving her home and told the soldier that of how much time she had lived in the house. She also told him of pirates who had come ashore to bury 6 chests of gold, silver, and jewels. She even showed him the 2 oak trees that the treasure was buried between. She also told him that when they had gotten all the treasure inside the hole, that the captain buried a knife in the chest of one of his crew and threw his body in upon the treasure itself. Now, this soldier, being curious, wanted to make sure that he was confident in the location of this treasure. There's a reason, obviously. Somebody told you where a treasure was at, wouldn't you want to make sure where it was at? But the old woman told him to leave the treasure alone. She said there was a pirate watching that treasure, and whether he was dead or not, she did not know. And later that night, the soldier and a friend went to find the treasure, and the more they dug, the higher the winds came, and the closer the lightning, until it became so bright that before them stood the silhouetted figure of a pirate. And that's where the story actually ends. We don't know what happened to the men digging. We don't know what happened to the pirate they saw. But the story just ends there. But they say the treasure did remain buried, and the story would have been remained buried as well, except for a soldier who told it at a reunion. So somebody must have lived from the encounter.
Mm-hmm.
And another man overheard it and just happened to put it in print. So we have the story. Because that's like a lot of paranormal stories throughout the years. We don't know about them because nobody told us about them.
Yes.
That's part of the reason we do this show, is so that these stories won't be lost. All right. Tell us about St. Philip's Church.
All right. St. Philip's Church is a large Episcopal church in Charleston. Charleston is known as the Holy City because of all of the steeples that loom over the city, and one of the largest is the steeple of St. Philip's.
Wow.
St. Philip's was established shortly after. They established a congregation shortly after the city of Charleston was founded, and that congregation built a church on a different site, but eventually they ended up moving to their current site on Church Street. And the original 18th century church that stood there burned in the 1830s, and it was replaced by the building that is currently there. And we also have a special guest. So
Helping
anyhow,
you tell the story.
Yes. So the church is surrounded by a very large churchyard. And in this churchyard are buried, there is at least one signer to the Declaration of Independence.
Wow.
You have a vice president, John C. Calhoun, who's also buried in the same churchyard. And over the years, the churchyard has become a popular stop on the local ghost tours. And so much so that the church finally put up a little sign just inside the gate where the tours usually stop, and it says there are no ghosts at St. Philip's except for the Holy Ghost.
There you go.
So it's gotten to the point where the tour guides always point out the sign.
Right. Oh
And
yeah.
they say, well, they're trying to put up an effort to put us out of business, but that effort is really all for naught.
Exactly.
Anyhow, back in the 1980s, a local resident had just gotten a camera and decided to go and test out the camera. And he walked around the corner to St. Philip's, and he sticks his hand through the gate, and he snapped off a few pictures. But when he got the pictures developed, he discovered that in one of the photographs there is what appeared to be a veiled figure kind of leaning over one of the graves.
Wow.
So he took the photograph and went back and discovered that this was the grave of a woman who had died in the 1880s,
Mm.
and this woman had actually died from the complications of childbirth, and in fact, her child had been stillborn. So it was believed that the child was also in the grave. So
Wow.
he began to publicize the photo, and he also at this time realized that the the date he took the picture was the date that she gave birth to the stillborn child.
Wow.
So perhaps this woman was appeared there to mourn the death of her child, and of course the death of her
Mm.
child, which would eventually take her own life as well. So anyhow, just last May, I think, I think May is the anniversary of the woman's and the child's deaths. Um, there was a tour group that stopped outside of the church, next to the churchyard, and one of the visitors took some photographs looking into the graveyard. And in this photograph, there is a kind of a veiled figure that appears to be walking through the cemetery. And it
Wow.
is near the grave where this other spirit passed or was
Wow.
seen. So, there is the correlation that perhaps this is the same spirit. Of course, there are some other stories, and it could possibly be something else
Right.
beyond the spirit of this young woman. But the British newspapers got wind of this, and they published a couple stories, very interesting, somewhat sensational stories about this new ghost photograph.
Wow. That is so cool. I wish we had a copy of it. That would
Yes.
be amazing. Well, guys, that's Strange States, South Carolina for you. They just keep getting weirder and weirder, don't they? I mean, it's each show has been just so unique in the stuff that we find about each state. And again, in 2 weeks, well, before we get there, any final thoughts about Strange South Carolina, Lewis?
Well, I can personally tell you this is really just the tip of the iceberg. That there's all types of number of places that we didn't even talk about.
Oh,
The
exactly.
Old City Jail in Charleston, which is a fabulous building and
Mhm.
is fabulously haunted. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, they
Oh,
do get
yeah.
weirder and weirder.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like every state that we've covered so far, we are just touching the tip of the iceberg. So we
Hmm.
encourage you to go do your own research. And like I said, Lewis's website, southernspiritguide.org, he has a whole directory on South Carolina. I mean, he has a directory on every state. So just hang with us, folks. We've got in 2 weeks our final strange state is Alabama. And of course, I do hope you'll be back with us, Lewis, because Lewis wrote the book on Haunted Alabama. And he's going to be with us, as well as Will Elric, who was here for the Bridges of Sorrows show, has written a book on the lore and legends of Alabama. And hopefully his wife, who has written about all things strange, not just in Alabama, but around the South. And Lee Peacock, who works at the newspaper in Evergreen, Alabama, was featured in the movie The Town That Loves Bigfoot, about all the Bigfoot sightings in that area. Lee has a blog about Bigfoot sightings, and hopefully a fourth special guest. But between Lewis and Will and hopefully Kelly and Lee, we're going to have an awesome power packed show. It's going to be one of the strangest shows And it ought to be fun. So, guys, thank you again. We're at almost an hour and a half. Lewis, thank you for all your insight today and your help. And we'll see you in 2 weeks on your strange journeys. Please stay safe and go look for those strange journeys. Bye-bye now.